Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Security teams have long chased known vulnerabilities, but AI is accelerating how new ones are discovered and exploited in a world where cyber operations are already part of state competition. Here to walk through how that changes the balance between attackers and defenders is Associate Professor of the Practice of Cyber Studies at the University of Tulsa, Justin Miller. Mr. Miller, it is so nice to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We've read a lot of headlines lately about Anthropic's new AI model, Mythos, and the alarms it is setting off. When a company limits access to its own AI tool out of fear of misuse, that's likely to get fast attention. When you think about what's happening now, what does that reaction tell you about how tools like this could or are changing the cyber threat landscape?
Well, I often look at cybersecurity through people, processes, and technology. That's how I kind of frame that. And we're getting to a point now where we have to understand that technology, as we have our really smart people working on that, we have to be able to make sure that we have the right personnel who can govern that and understand the responsibilities of this cyber ecosystem that allows us to operate with ethics, morals, and understands the abilities that AI can bring into our cyber domain and what effect that could happen. So making sure that we understand policy, how to govern that. We need those people in cyberspace that'll help us stay forward thinking, stay right, stay moral, stay professional. That's what when you ask me that question, that's what I think about.
We'll come back to those topics in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about the AI piece first, because security researchers have hunted software vulnerabilities for years. What's different about AI-driven tools like Mythos, for example, that can identify previously unknown flaws at scale and speed?
Well, AI it's a capability multiplier, right? And 0 day is a specific undiscovered vulnerability. And to be able to think faster, we need artificial intelligence in some ways to help us seek out these vulnerabilities. That hidden weakness can be extremely dangerous, and we have to be able to identify the sophistications in it quickly and start sounding that alarm a lot faster. And I think that's where AI can help us if we're using it for the right reasons, directing to the right purpose.
It seems like you have to have AI to respond to AI because human brains don't work that fast. So what is the danger of an AI escalation here?
Well, it moves fast, right? So it dramatically accelerates how vulnerabilities can be weaponized. But on the flip side of that, AI can accelerate how vulnerabilities are discovered, defended against. So you almost have machine on machine, and that's where we have to be able to train it most appropriately. And hopefully our cyber policies and governance personnel are doing a better job than our adversaries in training their AI versus our AI.
Let's come back to the ethics and morals question, because in my simple brain, offensive cyber is done by the bad guys and defensive cyber is done by the good guys. But when you think about these new kinds of AI-enabled capabilities, based on your experience, who's most likely to exploit this capability early and why?
Well, given my background, I'm always looking at the nefarious angle. And with AI, when we look at cyber criminals or rogue nation states, AI lowers the barrier to entry for some of their cyber operations, and it increases the speed and scale of their attacks. But one thing I've learned over time is that we're going up against a trained, practiced adversary. And as we train our students in our universities, they're becoming better later in life. And when they graduate and go into these jobs in industry, into our cyber ecosystem, they haven't really been exposed to that fast-paced, fast-level trained adversary. And the on-the-job training is a critical element to see that. I tell my students that they're lucky if they can get into a breach investigation right away, because everything's into the real world environment. And everybody, I think there's an old adage that says everybody has a plan until you get smacked in the mouth, right? And that changes the whole dynamic. And being able to go up against trained, practiced adversaries and combat that efficiently is kind of that's the drive that we're producing here at the University of Tulsa. And I think every cybersecurity student, practitioner needs to continue to practice. They need to continue to upscale, train, because they are going up against trained, well-funded adversaries who are focused, and they've been focused for many years trying to potentially bring down the United States.
Justin Miller is Associate Professor of the Practice of Cyber Studies at the University of Tulsa. Mr. Miller, if attackers, as you just described, are well-funded, organized, practiced, and faster now, how does that change how agencies and organizations really need to approach detection, patching, and incident response?
There needs to be more practical applications in the classroom, right? And then we need to increase that stress level. And as we've trained our students, we're finding that as they come back from industry, they're saying, hey, you're sitting as wicked smart people, but they have a hard time communicating technical knowledge in a fast way. And that's what we're practicing in our classroom, is we're putting you behind the computer, giving you practical exercises, and simultaneously asking questions and forcing you to communicate what you're doing in real time to effectively produce what we're hoping will be faster responses in the real world out in industry.
Does this new capability tilt the playing field, I guess, in the direction of offensive cyber operations by nation states?
I think nation states are going to be offensive, right? And the United States is, I think, overall our strategy. If we think back to 2010, we initiate Cyber Command, and because we started seeing that there was a fifth domain, right, in our military operations, where we have land, sea, air, space, but now cyberspace, or the cyber domain, becomes that fifth domain that kind of blurred the operational capabilities that we were trying to defend against. Because I think that the toughest part of that is we have private networks and public networks that are all intertwined over the internet that a lot of our critical systems are attached to. So trying to partner with all of these networks that are protecting transportation, hospitals, utilities, telecom, logistics, finance, right, cloud dependencies, that creates a large-scale ecosystem that the United States, by recognizing that in 2010 with Cyber Command, and then you see I would call it the Russian influence operations of the 2016 presidential election, and then that kind of led the United States to 2018 building CISA, because they're recognizing that it's not only technical operations, but it's influence-based as well, and that this cybersecurity is beyond machine to machine. It's now offensive in the sense of influencing, and you're seeing that today, right? This morning, the report was that Iran responded via their social media page, right? So cyber is grown exponentially in, not only is it zero-day attacks, machine to machine, but you're seeing offensive influence operations.
What kind of organizations or activities do you assess as most vulnerable to these kind of offensive and influence operations?
I think you can look at our transportation sectors, our utilities, our water, our telecom, and that's where when we look back at people, processes, and technology, I think the people have a very strategic partnership in that. And it's those people that we need to pay attention to, because, the late night janitor or the midnight shift rep at the utility plant or the water purification plant, whose only job is to sit there for 8-10 hours and look at a screen and manage network flows. Those people are very critical, that the people and the process that they play in managing the network. And it's those individuals that I think have the key insights into our critical infrastructure, where we look at our water, our utilities, our hospitals, and we want to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table. When we're talking about cyber, one thing I've seen when we sit in the room is there's a lot of lawyers in these rooms when we're looking at things, and not a lot of technical people. And when we look at cyber operations, and a lot of times I would ask I want to see the physical security personnel. I want to talk to the janitors. I want to talk to the midnight personnel and see what they're looking at to help us kind of further understand what was going on in the system. So that whole ecosystem, there's a lot more to cyber than just the IT personnel, your cyber personnel. That holistic approach, everybody in that corporation, that company, has a role to play. And whether you're the janitor or a systems monitor, I think there's value in seeing what they're seeing about accessing the company every day, whether that's from physical security, parking, to cyber operations. There's value in assessing your people.
You spent 25 years as a Secret Service special agent. What worries you most about the cyber world we live in today?
Really, what worries me most is a cascading effect between multiple actors. When you see the combination of China, Russia, Iran most recently, and North Korea, those four actors, over the past 25 years of my career, I've seen and experienced investigations that were linked to those individuals, nation states. And we know they're in their telecom system. We've seen that. The Iranians, tried to hit the Bowman Dam. They are showing more capability with their cyber operations. But that cascading effect of all four of those actors coming together to try to target us at one time, I think would be scary.
I've been speaking with Justin Miller. He's Associate Professor of the Practice of Cyber Studies at the University of Tulsa. Mr. Miller, really appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Listen to the Federal Drive on your schedule. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.